If you're like most cosmopolitan people, you're a real fan of the chicken they serve in Indian restaurants, swimming in that heavenly, velvety, smooth, soupy sauce known as a curry. And if so, you've probably wondered two things from time to time. One, how do you make this stuff? And two, what do you pair with it? Well, today on BottlingRoom.com, we are answering both questions. First, with a real restaurant recipe for making chicken tikka masala, and second, the pairing advice of Raj Parr, the father of RN74 and the co-author of Secrets of the Sommeliers. We'll get to the pairing, but first, to make this stuff, here's what you do. You get 2 pounds of onions, 2 ounces of garlic, and 2 ounces of ginger. Chop the onions and start caramelizing them in butter on low to medium heat. Then get about 46 ounces of water together, and of that, use 8 ounces to puree the chopped ginger and garlic for at least 2 minutes. If you take a shortcut here, the curry is going to be gritty with the fiber of the ginger. It took me 10 years to learn of this step in a book on restaurant curries. Producing liquid velvet takes time. I'm going to start dumping the onions and the ginger and garlic together. And this mixture will in turn boil for a little bit, actually simmer for a little bit. And before long, some tomatoes will get introduced. And the curry will be done. This is going to sit on the stove for a little bit, and the remainder of the water that didn't go into the blender with the ginger and the garlic will now go into this pan. Once this starts boiling, I'll reduce the heat and let it cook for about 45 minutes on a simmer, covered. Meanwhile, I've got some chicken over here. This chicken is going to be lightly salted, and I'm just going to put it in the oven so that it can roast. The onions, ginger, and garlic solution is now cooked as it need be cooked. Okay, yeah. We're going to need to cool it off in the sink full of water, because you don't want to put something really, really hot into a blender. It'll just burst the cap off and go all over the ceiling. Here it is, the onion, ginger, garlic mixture in the sink, waiting to cool. And now the curry base in progress does need to go back into the pan. So we'll get it in here. What a handsome color, huh? About roughly 8 ounces of tomato puree into the curry base. As you can see, the tomato addition has radically transformed the color into a more reddish color. It's sort of a pale orangey brown color. In addition, we're going to add a little paprika and turmeric, a teaspoon each, and that's going to add some more color also. One of the things you want to do is skim off any of this froth that's coming from the tomatoes and get rid of it while this stuff cooks further. So as this starts to melt, we'll just start with our spices. This will be maybe a teaspoon of garam masala. This will be maybe a teaspoon of cumin. And a tablespoon of coriander. You give that a swirl and let it fry for a little bit. And if you let it fry for too long, you'll burn the spices. When you start to really smell the fragrances of the coriander, the cumin, and the garam masala, you'll know that it's just about toasted to where you want it, or fried. So we can start frying a little bit of our tomato puree at this point. I have about, 2, 3, 4 ounces there. Probably about 6 tablespoons worth. Tomatoes do need a little bit of time to get that raw flavor out of them. And at this point you can put a roughly equal amount of the curry base. And I say roughly equal to the amount of tomato puree that you put in. Maybe a tad more. Into the pan and let that commingle with the tomato puree. Smell that garlic and ginger. Now that you have your tomato puree, your curry base, your butter, your cumin, your coriander, and your garam masala together, it's time to add the whipping cream. I'm using what they call in the UK single cream, what they call in the United States whipping cream, which is in contrast to, and let me go to my refrigerator, in contrast to heavy whipping cream, or what they will call double cream in the UK. It would be too thick of a curry in the end if you were to use that. So, we'll use heavy whipping cream. Excuse me, we're going to be using single cream. And you can put an amount roughly half of the volume that's already in there in cream. And right away you'll see that you have a sort of a pink mixture all of a sudden. And it'll be really pale for a little while, but this will darken up and become a little more orange with about 2, 3, 4 minutes of cooking. The one thing that you have to add is salt. If you don't add salt, your food tastes bland. If you ever get a dish at the restaurant and notice that there's something severely wrong, 9 times out of 10 it's the lack of salt. Okay, and now the secret ingredient, kasuri methi. This stuff comes packaged in a much more leafy format. And I've had to put all of those leaves and stems into a Ziploc bag and hit it with a rolling pin for at least 2 or 3 minutes to get this fine powdery kasuri methi. Anyway, that goes in and it gives the curry a kind of a creamy, grassy herbaceousness. It's hard to describe, but it's just downright wonderful. It's also time to add your chicken. When I asked Raj Parr the other day what to pair with chicken tikka masala, he suggested a Northern Rhone Syrah, much like this Hermitage. Well, I tried it out with a couple of guests and it worked. And the reasoning goes like this. If you try, let's say, a Chardonnay, the creaminess in the Chardonnay might just blend right in with the creaminess of the chicken tikka masala and not give very much pleasure. Let's say a Chenin Blanc, it might have so much wet wool or lanolin or chamomile in it that it competes for attention with the curry. But if you try a Sauvignon Blanc, getting warmer, you might have enough straightforward pungency to rise above the curry without competing with it. But since you got so many tomatoes in a curry, you might as well go with a red, and a red with that kind of pungency, often called barnyard, often called burnt rubber, often called beef jerky, is Syrah. Enjoy.